First of all, thank you for your invitation to be a lecturer here with you today in the era of this pandemic, which is, as you know, probably the historical reference point for the future generations, for you, for me, and for everybody else who will come. And as you know, there is no such problem today in the world as is this virus. So I named this presentation as the SARS-CoV-2 public enemy number one, which is this virus truly is. Okay, so again, thank you, and I wish you fruitful Congress and meeting, and that you have good time, although it's everything online. So I'm happy to see you here in person, and should we go? We should go. This doesn't work. Oh, that's it. Okay. First thing is one small disclaimer and disclosure I need to say to you. It's not working. Oops. Okay. It's slow. Okay. I believe that. Here's the speaker. Okay, you will see here in this presentation something from our laboratory, and there are so many instruments and tests which have brand names which are not commercial for the manufacturer, so that not representing any promotional materials. Everything is every pictures, every photos are filmed at our department, and this is our experience from the past year, and you will see how we are managing this crisis in our hospital. All other stuff is free stuff from World Wide Web and some kind of scientific material with source cited. So first of all, we need to meet the enemy. As you know, coronaviruses aren't new. They are with humans centuries together. We are maybe millennium, 1,000 years we are living with them. The four of them are the most prevalent cause of common cold, and they have these four species some funny names, as you can see, numbers and letters. But coronavirus is also pathogens in animals and the birds, not just mammals. So these four are nothing special. And every year in the winter period, some of us has some kind of infection. But during the last 20 years, we had 3 newcomers. First was SARS-CoV virus, and then 10 years later, we have again some new urgent alert when the MERS-CoV virus emerged in some part of the world, and today we are living this last pandemic which is caused by the SARS-CoV-2 virus. So you can see that the names are a little bit fuzzy, and first of all we need to know why the coronavirus is named coronavirus. So that's because of these prominent spike proteins which project from the surface of the viral of the virion, and you can see that spike protein looks like halo which surround our sun. So this is like solar corona of our star in our solar system, and then the photos of the coronaviruses under the electronic microscope, it looks like sun. So then the name was coronavirus because of that. Corona means, as you know, crown. These proteins, which is presented here, are the main proteins of this virus, and we are using them in the detection during the diagnostic of virus in human samples. So you should know that in different combinations they are used in different tests, and I will present you all the tests which we are using, and that is something which the whole world are using. So there's nothing new about it, and the proteins which are presented here on the different places of the virion actually are, as you know, encoded in this single-stranded positive sense messenger RNA, which are the nucleus of this virus. So everything is encoded in RNA viral genome, but the different sequences of these genes are detected in the molecular tests, and also some kind of proteins are detected in the antigen test. And I will show you actually what we are doing in Osijek. So, as you know, this SARS means severe acute respiratory syndrome, which emerged 20 years ago almost in whole world with 10,000, even a little bit less, maybe 8,000 till 9,000 hospitalized patients with mortality rate around 10%, which was pretty high if you put it in this epidemic nowadays. And it was first alert which somehow was introduced the coronavirus as the primary menace of the world. And 10 years later, we had also some different virus, and that was Middle East Respiratory Syndrome. So that one was the sixth of the species from this family, which is a broad family of animals, viruses from the animals and also from the humans. But this Middle East Respiratory Syndrome coronavirus was even more pathogenic to the humans. So the mortality rate was around 1/3 of the all one who was ill. But the good thing about this was that this virus was localized in Arabic Peninsula, as you can see, and some of the cases was important in Western countries and also in Southern Korea. At that epidemic, it was around 2,500 people which became ill, and around 1/3 of them died of this virus. So, and it was pretty much horrifying for the whole world. And then, of course, as you know, we are all living that. In the end of 2019, new epidemic emerged, new cluster of the hospitalized patients in China, in Wuhan. 30 patients with severe pneumonia was admitted in the hospital, and that was the pretty big alarm to whole the world. Then, pretty much fast, around months later, the coronavirus, the new one, was identified, and then we know that this is the seventh coronavirus, seventh species, which are very pathogenic to the humans, and also it's probably the fastest spreading of all of them. And that was what put us in this position in right which we are now. So why this novel SARS-CoV-2 virus was such a pretty big problem? Because it shares genome with the SARS-CoV, the first one, and also with MERS-CoV virus. So this is the probably from where they drew the characteristics and make this whole problem to us. As you know, the virus origins are in animal. Animals are reservoir for these viruses, and during the history, the virus are jumping from the animals to the humans directly or indirectly through the carrier, like some kind of animals which we are have in the near contact. As you can see, 1,000 years ago, almost the first of them was jumped to the humans. So this is nothing new. When this epidemic starts, there are some questions which need to be answered, and nobody knows in which way this will be go. And that was pretty horrifying, because everybody have seen that the virus is spreading pretty much easy. And when we are comparing this epidemic with some previously known epidemic, it was pretty clear that would be a big problem for whole world. A year ago, before the Europe was attacked with this virus, maybe only Italy was somehow in hot topic for this virus, also because the Chinamans which are living in northern part of the Italy. So you can see which emerging viruses, diseases are of key interesting in the WHO, and some of them has even bigger mortality, like Ebola virus, but they are restricted to some part of the world, so we don't have pandemic ongoing with them. Okay, so on March the 2nd, 2020, we had in around 19,000 corona cases in the world. Mostly of them was in China, as you can see, but this date was some kind of breaking point for the development of this whole epidemic, and you can see that number of cases in China was decreasing, but at the same time number of cases outside of China was increasing, and that was pretty much really fast. So from March 11, it was obviously that all the world will be attacked with this virus, and World Health Organization proclaimed that COVID-19, which is disease origin from the SARS-CoV-2 infection, was pandemic infection in the whole world. 6 months later, only 6 months later, from 19,000 people, we had 34 million people in the world which were attacked and hospitalized or have become ill with this new disease. So yesterday, this is from the yesterday, which is 6 months later from this October, and 1 year later for the beginning of pandemic in the world, 11th March, yesterday was 18th March, we have 120 million people, even more today, with new cases per day, which are 500,000 people involved in this epidemic per day. So mortality was following that high numbers, and today we have more than 2.5 million people died from this disease, which are pretty much big numbers because we are rarely seeing diseases which has such high numbers. When we are talking about absolute numbers of dead people, of people who was dying of some particular illness. So this is something which will be furthermore probably spreading and involving more and more people. So everybody are pretty much today know that we need to stop this spreading of this virus. So at the January of 2010, the first clinical data was showing that most of hospitalized patients has pneumonia, and minor part of them need to be admitted to ICU. But when you have big numbers, then there are so many so many persons who need to be hospitalized, and then they can, of course, die in that clinical institutions. Today, we know something more about these viruses, and we know that all ages are susceptible for the infection and at risk, but probably only the older population became severe ill, and part of them needs to be hospitalized in intensive care units because of multiple organ failure or severe pneumonia with acute respiratory distress syndrome. In contrast to that, younger people had mild disease. So we, of course, it needs to be reassessed in the future, and nobody knows in which direction it could goes this. So far as we know, older men with comorbidities are more likely to develop severe illness, severe respiratory disease, which need to be hospitalized, and then it is that something which we need to be aware of. So that's the reasons of such high numbers of people who died of this illness. As you know, all the world are trying to find answer to this challenge. First of all, we are trying to find some therapy, and then, of course, parallel with finding a therapy, we are trying to finding the cure. We are trying to find vaccine as the most valuable weapon in this fight. And as you know, everybody are watching, everybody are talking about vaccine, everybody talking about SARS-CoV during the last year, like nothing others are happening, and that's something what changed our whole life in total. So even the most famous newspapers in the world are daily updating the knowledge about what are developed in this field of vaccine or the therapeutic strategy. Even politicians are talking about all the time. So we will come back later about how this infection affect the whole world. But first, I would like to show you some photos from our laboratory where we are testing the samples of the ill people to find SARS-CoV virus, and as you know, the gold standard is real-time reverse transcription polymerase chain reaction based tests, and they are designed to find 2 sequences or 3 sequences in tests. The time which we are need to test one sample is, or 96 samples, it's around 3 hours. That depends about the first step in this whole procedure. That means RNA extraction step, which can be quite difficult because you need to have some instruments which helps us to do it all faster than when we are doing it manually. So first the step are inactivation of virus, and in the first day of epidemic, nobody knows how effective was this sample, so we need to make great precautions about it. As you can see, that everybody are fully protected and working in the special area of the laboratory, which is equipped with some kind of special instrument. As you can see, it's biosafety cabinet level 2, which make this part of the this area very safe. So after that first step, we need to extract the RNA and isolate RNA in this kind of instruments, which now we have more than enough. And then today we are equipped with so many of them and can do it high throughput, and so many of high numbers of these specimens could be loaded, and we can then test it for this virus. So all the machinery can't replace the humans. Machinery are good, but humans are dead. So we need to also have people who are very motivated and can do it by self, or without this kind of machines. But the final step is PCR amplification, and without that instrument we can't do anything. So here you can see 2 of them, which are powerful machines and can do it, this amplification step, in around 1 or 2 hours, depending on the heat which is used in that particular machine. In our institution we are using 2 different manufacturers, 2 different kits. One is based on multiplex PCR with 3 sequencing detected, and the second one is 2 sequencing detecting. And this is how it looks when you have tested 19 whole samples, and these all red curves which you can see in this sigmoidal shape represent the positive results of these tests. So it's around 40% in this run, and that was somewhere in the middle of November last year. So as you know, it was then this second wave which were splashed out of us, something like that. I'm not quite familiar with the right expression. So you need to have in the laboratory one special instrument, because you need reagent for the people. People must be also fed. You need to feed it with something like that. This is my favorite. So when we are buying all things, all that instruments, we buy in this one also we bought. So it was a gold standard in the detection, but we have some other possibilities and other testing methods, which is something like you can see here. It's rapid antigen test based on detection of S protein, spike protein. PCR, as you know, detected only genome, but this is detection of protein in nasopharyngeal specimen, and this is fast method, 15 minutes to 30 minutes, something like that, but less sensitive than PCR. PCR will always be a gold standard for this detection. So if something is negative, you should do also the gold standard test. That means quantitative PCR. So here is 3 samples from our laboratory, and you can see first and third, which are positive, and this in the middle is negative. The letter T stands for test line. Letter C stands for control line. So you know that the all was done as it should be. So this is 2 different types of detection system, and we have it, of course, more. This is some kind of point of care device, but not actually point of care device. This is a little bit complex point of care device. This is multiplex PCR, which can, in same sample, detect more than 22 targets, and that everything are conducted in this small film, and the whole procedure is pretty much fast, and we need around 45 minutes to detect something of this pathogen which can be found in this respiratory specimen, and we are using a lot during these days, but that multiplex PCR can't replace the gold standard, because you can test only 1 per 1 and only 1 sample at a time. So a few weeks ago we had one more, some kind of this similar device. This one is also point of care device, is also multiplex PCR, and you can see how it's simplified and small it is. You can put it in your pocket and do it, testing wherever you want. It's straightforward, it's easy to manage, and it's pretty much, everybody likes that one, because you have everything in one place. So the results are there after 20 minutes of the procedure, and you just need to put it inside of the instruments. Everything is done for you, and at the same time it can detect, together with SARS-CoV-2 virus, also an influenza virus, which we don't have this year, as you know already. So you know that this pandemic changed everything in the world, how we interact between, how everything was pretty much fuzzy now. Nobody wants to touch each other, even on the high level of administration in the world, and many of them are involved in education of the whole people, the nations. The Prime Minister here are talking to the public about importance of hand hygiene and how it should be conducted in the world. As you know, this is something which had to be already very good known, especially into the hospital. And also you know that we need to live in a different way now. As you know, we need to go on the different side of our lives. We need to go on the dark side. We need to wear masks. Like now, we don't visit each other. It is forbidden. We must follow orders. But that's all in our best for us. It should be smart to do that. And of course, this is the last slide, and I'm somewhere in time. This is 6 of us, which are part of our team, 30 dozen, which are doing this molecular diagnostics, but not just people which are here. It was some Sunday last year, one idle day for this testing. Everybody are smiling, everything was good. There was no positive samples, but we will see what the future will bring to us. As you know, new variant of this SARS-CoV-2 virus are emerging, and it will be challenging for all of us how to manage it in this, the new normal, as you already put it in the title of your Congress and meeting. Thank you again and for your invitation, and hope it was for you interesting and that you find something new here. Thank you.